So after spending an amazing week sailing with Ian and Nat, we've come back and we've got some renewed focus and some new insight in how we want to proceed with Melody. So just to give you a little context, we live near a town called Pwllheli. Melody is in a boatyard in Holyhead, which is about an hour and a half each way.
So obviously we're keen to get Melody closer to home.
We could put her on a low loader and move her down there by lorry, but that would cost about £5,000, which is money we could be spending on the boat. And the boatyard down there wouldn't allow us to do the kind of welding and grinding that we can do here. So we'd end up paying the yard to do work that we could do ourselves.
So our plan is to motor or sail her down there, which is about a 10-hour trip if we did it in one go.
So the question is, what do we need to do as a bare minimum to safely put her in the water and sail her from Holyhead down to Pwllheli?
So a lot of people comment on our videos asking when Melody will be finished. And like any boat, the reality is never.
But that's kind of dodging the question, isn't it, really? The fact is, when will she be ready to float is the important thing. And once we've got her floating, we can then do things like when will she be ready to live aboard? When will she be ready to cross oceans?
And we could spend the next 10 years in this yard getting every little detail perfect.
But the fact is, most liveaboards do a huge amount of work on their boats whilst in the water. I guess it's a little bit like buying a house and sorting out the electrics to make sure it's safe and then just moving in, or buying a house and doing a complete refurb of every little detail before you move in. And with that in mind, then, we want to get Melody in the water as soon as possible. We want working propulsion, steering, a working rig, and the critical element is that it's done safely, of course. You will all have seen our board of doom, which has the red, amber and green post-it notes on it to indicate the jobs we need to do. But what we're doing now is trimming down that list to come up with a much smaller number of jobs which are red but essential to float only. So things like fitting a line cutter, is it essential in my head? Yes. Do we absolutely have to have one before we put the boat in the water to get it down to Pwllheli? No. Things like, I don't know, removing the interior wood around some of the windows. Is it essential? Yes. Do we have to do it before we launch the boat to go down to Pwllheli? No. Firstly then, here's the list of jobs in category order. And remember, these are only the jobs we need to do to float the boat, nothing more.
Now Andy did want to read this list out loud, but I said that was far too dull and monotonous. So if you want to read the list, if you just pause it and give it a read.
So that's the jobs in category order, but like any project, a lot of these jobs are conditional, by which I mean that some of the jobs can only be done by me and Melissa, or me and Melissa and Nigel. Some of the jobs can be done by Melissa and Jack. Some of the jobs are weather dependent. Some of the jobs need us to be up in the crane like we are, but critically, conditionally, some of these jobs need to be done in a certain order. So for example, that Melissa can't paint the top sides until I've finished the welding in the chain locker. Now it's a long bank holiday weekend, the weather is fine and the boatyard have lifted Melody up into the travel lift supported by blocks, so she's really safe and really secure.
So we've got the ideal opportunity to get the jobs done underneath.
Let's have a look then at the extent of the corrosion up inside the keel box. We know that there's one little patch which I'm going to show you, and the purpose of this is to find and resolve any other little patches up inside that keel box. So if you don't already know, our boat is a bit of a weird configuration. She's a long keel boat. Here you go, long keel. We have a full length keel, starts at the bow and goes all the way to the stern, protected prop, protected rudder. We've then got ballasted bilge keels on the side, and these are great because they mean that we can take to ground if we want to. We can run up onto a beach, let the tide go out and she won't topple over. But unlike most long keel boats, she's got a ballasted lifting keel as well. Some people have said that's not a keel, it's a centre plate. It's not a centre plate because it's not just a plate. This is an aerofoil shape full of approximately a ton of lead, and there's some surface rust on this, but there is nothing that goes through, so that will be shot blasted and shot blasted back to white metal and then painted up. But the bit that I want to show you is this underneath the long keel. Here you go. So this is the underneath of the long keel, and this box here is where the lifting keel goes up inside. This is one place that I found earlier in the year and it had rusted through to the point where water had got in and it was seeping a little bit. So I cut out that piece there. So that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, that I want Nigel to tackle. But what I want to do is start smacking away at this, getting all of the loose stuff off. Not to try and, you know, prep it for painting. They're going to shot blast it for painting, but so that we can cut out any really bad areas for Nigel to weld when he comes on Sunday.
So my job while Andy's under the boat treating the rust is to gain access to the tube, the base of the tube that the cables run down for the lifting keel. So I'm going to have to remove some furniture, which I don't really want to do. So in here is the winch. You put the winch handle on there to winch up the keel. Then the cables run down this pipe down, so this is well above the waterline, right down into the sea. So I'm going to cut this frame here, which rather than taking it all apart, because we want to be able to put it back in to make this section of floor removable, so we can always get to the bit that I'm trying to get to now. So I'm going to cut it there, unscrew it there, and then it means that we can make that into one section. And the reason I'm doing that is for future inspection. So that's that bit. So it looks like this part of the floor comes up as one piece.
If we get this board up, is the rest of the keel box bolted on? When I was just underneath the keel poking around, I was using a 1 metre aluminium rule, as you may have noticed, because it's the only thing I've got that's long enough to get right up into the keel box to flake off the old anti-foul and paint. And it looks like there's butyl all the way around the keel box. Now, we thought that just the forward section unbolted. It looks from underneath like there's butyl all the way around, and we're desperately hoping that when we remove this piece of wood, we will find nuts and bolts the whole way around the rest of the keel box, which will be sweet.
Moment of truth. Look at that.
There you go, we've got nuts and bolts all the way around.
Oh, well, that's going to be fun to get off.
Yeah, it's not going to be that difficult though. I mean, even if some of them shear off, that's fine, because we can just
we're going to replace them
nuts and bolts, new nuts and bolts anyway. Oh, this makes life so much easier, and it means we don't have to worry about not being able to visualize everything. Right, we will cut to the next shot, which will be this keel box lid removed.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe some bolt undoing.
Do we want a bolt undoing montage? A really quick one then. Bolt undoing montage. Promise that we won't do 7 minutes of bolt undoing.
To get all of these out, but there's still another plate.
There's a load at the back, so there's actually 3 plates. There's the forward plate, which goes under the mast step, the aft plate, which has got the tube for the winch. Okay. And this stuff that flakes off is very light, and it's mostly
butyl.
It's mostly butyl and paint and anti-foul.
It's a little bit cosy under here.
Not hard. Let me angle that down slightly so you can see what we're doing. These bolts hold down the plate, which holds this tube. These ones are accessible. The ones at the back here, I've got a feeling we're going to need to take out the batteries, the battery tray, and cut the floor up to get to the nuts, to get a spanner on the nut, just for the last two at the back side here.
I'm trying to be Mr. Stretch Armstrong.
Well, it's be very...
Anyone with long skinny arms want to come and volunteer themselves?
The problem is there's not much gap under the floor because of the concrete and the ballast, so there's only enough gap. I can barely get my hand in there flat, and I can't even reach these nuts at the back with my fingertips.
You've got massive hands.
I know I have.
Where are you when we need you, Chris Clark?
Chris Clark's too small. His arms would be too short.
No.
You need somebody with Chris Clark's arms, but who's 6'3". Paul could do it. Ah, this is so painful. No. Right, update. We're still trying to get that back panel off there. That's this panel here, which has got the tube for the winch for the keel, but we can't because there isn't. If you reach in through here, there isn't enough space to get your hand and a spanner on the back of the nuts that are holding the plate down. Not those big 4 ones. I think the bolts are welded on, but we can't get a spanner in there because it's just too far. The reach is just too much. So we're having to take up the 2 sections of floorboard, that piece that Melissa is just taking up, and most likely this piece, which is going to be a total swine. When the boat was assembled, the guy didn't use brass or stainless screws, which is fine. They've lasted 40 years, and they're not broken, but they are, you know, rounding off when we try and unscrew them. So that's what I'm talking about. See this concrete here? The issue was being able to get your hand under here in between the concrete ballast and the to get to the nut, the back of this nut here. Take this panel out. We've discovered that we've managed to get all the bolts off this side, and we've discovered that we can get this piece out from under the battery tray. Worst case scenario, that's easy. Worst case scenario, I was thinking I could either remove the whole battery tray, which would be a pain in the bum. Right, we've now got access under the battery box to get
a bit further.
Get onto these last 2. You can put this one back down now for you to lie on. There. Right. Okay. So Melissa's got the spanner. I've got the sockets. I will say, when we rebuild this, we will be rebuilding it with much better access, because the day we launch there'll be no floorboards in this boat, because we want to be able to... You want it?
Yeah, I want it.
Oh, look at that.
Ow! Hurry up.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that our lovely viewers can actually see.
I don't even think you're pointing. Are you pointing at?
Yeah, I've got the top of your forehead. And hang on. Right.
There's been lots of swear words.
There are more swear words than we normally use. Right, we've got one more to do. Oh my goodness. We've got all of the parts of the keel box off the top, which is really good news. As I say, we thought that the only bit that you could remove was the front section to get to the, you know, to lift the keel out. But the whole of the top of the keel box comes apart. Let me show you. It's a little bit dark now. This is the aft section, which the tube bolts to. This is the tube I'm talking about, and that tube goes to a winch up there, and it winches the keel up and down. So that mounts to this. All of this crud look that's coming off, that's just butyl and old paint and anti-foul and all of that kind of stuff. Melissa's off sailing, which is great. The more experience she gets, the better. Okay, so there's our keel box. And I've spent the last day and a half really, all day today more or less, just using the Turku tool, that rotary blaster thing. Well, it's raining again. Nigel's on the way over here to help me with welding. He's coming all the way from Manchester. We've got the crane up in the hoist. I've spent 2 days banging the inside of the keel box so that we can weld it, and it's chucking it down. Let's just hope it stops by the time Nigel gets here, at least by the time Nigel gets here and we've decided what exactly we're doing. But first, cup of tea. Well, I'm depressed. Nigel's here. We've had the whole keel box.
I'm not depressing him.
No, Nigel's
you
not.
need to rephrase that. I'm depressed because Nigel's here.
No, I'm depressed because no, Nigel's not depressing me. The keel box is in a much worse state than we thought. It's there's only a few areas down the bottom where the steel has actually pitted and gone through, but Nigel's assessed it all and it's very, very thin. At least the bottom 6 inches all the way around the keel box is very thin, unacceptably thin. So what's the solution?
Well,
new keel box.
Yeah, well, we've measured up the keel itself, and we've got a lot of room to play with. So my suggestion is we basically make a new keel box fits inside the original keel box. Leave the original keel box where it is and build a brand new keel box inside of it.
Bear in mind that we're not overplating, because we will still shot blast the original one,
yeah,
and fully paint the original one, but the new keel box will go up inside or down inside the original one and then be welded to it. So there'll actually be a fully painted, it's just like welding another bit of steel inside your boat.
Yeah, and essentially that what we will be forming is a new completely sealed keel box, but built on the inside of the original one. Mm-hmm. Because to cut out that keel box, I mean,
we'd have to take the whole furniture out and all the ballast out.
You're almost starting afresh, so I can see why you're depressed.
Yes.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that hard.
Right.
So it's 2 sheets of 4mm, I think we're thinking.
Yeah.
2 sheets of 4mm either side to form the 2 new sides. Yeah. Then 2 new end plates, again 4mm.
Yeah. Cup of tea.
And create a brand new keel box basically.
Yeah.
It'll also mean that the swivel pin for the keel itself
has got extra protection around it, yeah, because that's the other thing. At the bottom of the keel box there's this great big fat pin that the keel sits on, and if the metal around that is thin, then feasibly, if the keel gets a lot of lateral force, it could break free, and that would be horrific. So by making a new keel box, but it'll offer a second layer of bracing for that pin,
yeah.
won't it?
Because the other issue we've got as well with the keel box is the back end of it is filled with ballast, concrete,
yeah.
and
concrete
to remove
and
all of that, we'd have to remove a lot of concrete, a lot of the ballast
and
as well, and tar and all sorts. So by building the new keel box, because we're lucky enough that there's a lot of play in there.
Yeah, we've got what? We've got 10 or 12 mil either side,
yes,
to play with. Plenty of room either side, and we've got about 5 or 10 mil either end to play with.
So this is a rare occasion. He's given me control of the camera. So have we got that torch? So
yeah,
that I can. Oh, it's here. I've got it.
There.
When I got here and Andy was so depressed and look what we found. I'll show you what we found. So if you have a look in the keel box, you can see, if I just hold the light, see them holes there. It's paper thin down there, and it almost goes all the way to the bottom of the keel box. Now you can see there's the pin. It's a 50mm solid stainless steel pin that goes through the sides of the keel box, and the worry there is it's welded inside and on the outside as well, and the worry there is a lot of play and movement on the keel when they're sailing. If that breaks those welds, then the boat's going to sink. So I'm not sure if we can see the whole keel box, but by basically plating the inside all the way down, So, and maybe up to about, it's hard to hold the light. Now I see how hard it is for you to do your filming, Andy. So yeah, we'll bring the keel box up to just below the lip, and then I can get a good weld all the way around, all the way down to the bottom, and we'll seal the new keel box inside the old one, and that will essentially give us a brand new keel box, but without having to remove the old one, and solve the problem. It's not as bad as it looks. There we go. So I'm going to try and put a smile back on Andy's face now.
Keel box work is coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully. In the meantime, Nigel and I are going to go outside and weld in the 2 patches which I cut out to access the bilges, while
I'm back.
and Melissa is back, and while Nigel and I are outside welding, Melissa's going to clean the engine bay, because as you remember from the list at the beginning of this video, there's a few engine jobs to do, and because of all the woodwork we've been doing in here, there's a bit of sawdust and what have you got into the engine bay, which I'm not worried about, but we want to give that a quick hoover out, and eventually we want to give it a lick of paint, clean up and a lick of paint. Yeah, so Melissa's on the engine bay, Nigel and I are going outside to do welding.
Shall we ask them? Should we knock this fuel tank and ask them from the sound for the comments on whether they think the tanks are full or empty?
All right,
I think
okay.
they're empty.
We've just measured the tanks, and we reckon they're 600 litre tanks. Sorry, 300 litre tanks. So we've got 600 litres of fuel overall. And I thought they were full. On the sight glass on the side, I can see fuel in it, but Nige can't. Nige reckons these are empty. Tell us what you think.
Well, I might be wrong. So we're ready.
We're ready.
Right, so we're going to start at the top.
Sounds the same.
It sounds the same all the way down.
So if they're either full or empty, and I'm going for empty.
Waiting for Jack to come out and go, hello. What do we think?
We will find out in a future episode when we eventually take the tops off.
Yeah, but if people vote in the comments,
Yeah.
we'll see who's
So
right and who's
please
wrong.
vote in the comments for whether you think our fuel tanks are full or empty. They must have fuel in, because we've run the engine for hours, me and Chris.
We'll drain fuel off it.
We've drained fuel off it and changed the fuel
There
filters.
is
There's
some.
got to be fuel in there. But we're going to take the tops off the fuel tank, empty all the diesel, and polish it anyway.
Not today.
Not today.
Oh, not empty all the diesel.
Or not empty
Depending on
any.
who's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Every boat needs a jack.
Pun?
Every boat needs a little person. But the only problem is you're going to grow. So what are we going to do when you grow?
Send me to university.
Send you to university.
Look at that.
That is perfect.
Apart from that gap there, beautiful.
So here Nigel's just tacking the plate in place, and then he'll V the groove so he can run the weld in nicely. And for me, it's just great having Nigel here doing the stuff below the waterline, because he can do me a coded method statement to show the surveyor and stuff later on.
So now we've got it tacked in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grind out a V here so I can weld here, and where it's not tacked, then I'll grind out where the tack's out and re-weld them, because these have been welded with it flush. So I don't want to leave them there because they've not got a V in to get a good penetrative weld. So I'll grind out here, weld that, and I'll grind out here and weld that, and here. Then I'll grind out these welds where they're tacked, because it'll now be held by the bit that has been welded.
Yeah.
Do that, and I'll just work my way around like that to make sure. This weld here, they already had a natural gap because of the gap.
Yes.
You don't need a V when you've got a big gap. Same here, I won't need a V just there because I've got a gap, so I'll get a good penetrative weld. But most of the other places, I'd rather have it touching, grind my V in and weld,
Yes.
than have a gap to weld.
Yes, of course.
So I get a much more consistent weld, and it's an easier life for me. So
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Nigel for coming and reassuring us that the keel box is not as bad as it seems. At one point I think I had my head in the keel box crying, and Andy was feeling really down about it. We knew the keel box was bad, we didn't realise quite how bad it was. So thank you, Nigel, and we look forward to working with you on this project very soon.
Right, so where are we up to now? Well, Nigel has gone. I'll show you the patches that we did yesterday. So the keel patches, the patches along the bottom of the outside of the keel are sorted. And the update is we're back down out of the travel lift, as you saw, and we are being blasted on Thursday. The underneath of the keel and inside the keel box. So there's the patches that that's just some stuff I've got to clean up, but there's the patches that have been welded in. I need to clean up those welds, just grind them back and blend them in, but they're spot on. And I've just sprayed those with zinc spray for now, because we're going to be epoxying after we've had the underside blasted. And here is the list for the blasting guy. 1, underside of the keel. 2, inside the keel box. 3, 60mm up and around the side, so we can double check around the edges and give that a good double coat of epoxy. 4, the whole of the lifting keel, both sides. 5, we're getting some new steel sheets and angle for various jobs, and I want him to blast all the mill scale off that, and it says thanks plus beers. So aside from the bits of the boat then that Harry's going to blast for us, I also want him to do the new sheets of steel and the new angle iron, which we're buying to do the various remaining patches. Nigel and I went through the list of welding that's got to be done, and it looks like there's about 10 welding jobs, 4 or 5 of which I can do myself, and 4 or 5 of which Nigel will either do or we'll do together when Nigel's here with me. So progress is being made.
As always, thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate your support and we love reading all your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. There's a notification bell that you can press so you get notified each week when a new video comes out. And if you want to, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And I just want to say a massive thank you to all our patrons that are appearing on the screen now. Your support is absolutely unbelievable and we couldn't do it without you.